Oh, thank you all for tuning in to another edition of Outside the Shop with me, your host, Daryl D. Lane, where I get to talk about everything that I normally don't get the chance to talk about on my regular sports podcast. Barbershop Sports Talk, which you guys can find on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iRadio, SoundCloud, Pandora, whichever podcast scamper platform you may be listening to me via. Top 40 quarterbacks in the NFL. Quarterback 16 and quarterback 15. Quarterback 16, Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. And I was just arguing with my good friend, by the way, Ben Karen, who I hope is listening to this. And I'm going to make the case for Ryan Tannehill being 16. First of all, he's arguably the most valuable person on the Titans offense. And people might say, oh, what about Derrick Henry? Well, what's the most important down in football? It is not first down. It's not second down. It is third down. Derrick Henry is never on the field on third down. Derrick Henry does have value if it's 1st and 10 and you do a play action right off the bat. It freezes the linebackers, obviously. But when it's 3rd and 8, Derrick Henry's off the field. That's all Ryan Tannehill. They ask him to stand in the pocket and deliver throws down the field. He's one of the best play action quarterbacks in the NFL. He can deliver the ball, tight spiral in between two defenders, thread the needle. He's very aggressive in terms of pushing the ball down the field, attacking his one-on-one matchups. He goes through his reads at a decent level, not a super high level. I also think what he does is he is a guy who can scramble a little bit. You can use him in the QB design and run game. Also, tough as nails. Will stand in the pocket, stand in the gun. As a defensive lineman is caving in on his chest, will throw it hard, tight spiral down the field. I also think he's fairly good at looking for the check down once his first read is off, once there's nothing down the field. He's very solid at, I'll throw it to the back. I'll take my check down pass. Now, here's the thing that I don't like about Ryan. I will say this. He locks onto his wide receivers. I think he can be a little slow at processing. He does not have great anticipation when he throws. Sometimes he'll throw it. He does not throw it in stride for wide receivers to get yak and yards consistently. That precision passing part of his game, it's a little limited. I think sometimes his ball placement can be a little off. He'll throw it a little bit too low, throw it a little too high. I think him throwing it a little too high matters less when you have a guy like A.J. Brown, who's been playing with for the last 3 or 4 years, who's big, strong, can catch these highly contested balls. But still, that's a limiting part of his game. He needs to get the ball out of his hands quicker. He needs to be a better decision maker. And I think sometimes he can be unaware of pressure and take very bad sacks. But besides all those negatives, there are still a lot of positives, and he is a top 16 QB in the NFL. Then we get to number 15, Matt Ryan, Matty Ice. Matt Ryan is probably the best quarterback in the NFL when it comes to processing information and going through his reads from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to A to B to C to D to E. He does it at the level of Brady, Rodgers, or even higher than those guys, Kirk Cousins, anybody you want to name. That is definitely a special part of Matt Ryan's game. He's not a threat in the run game. He's not a crazy thrower of the football. He's not a scrambler. In fact, he's very porous at all of those things. But what he can do, he goes through his reads. He processes information. He plays the game it's really supposed to be played. He's very surgical. He's very good at the short passing game, intermediate passing game. Has very good touch. He throws it to the wide receiver in stride, in their hands, so they can get yards after the catch. He's a quick decision maker. He's a good decision maker. He's good at getting the ball out of his hands quickly. He's very aware of where pressure is. And there were times where Matt would go through his reads, right, from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to A to B to C to D, and nobody's open. Right. And that is the one part of his game that I don't like, and what really stops him right now from being a top 10 quarterback, because in terms of the prototypical stuff of being a quarterback, Matt Ryan does all that at a high level. When there is nothing there to be had, he cannot extend plays. He cannot make plays. He cannot do that as a runner. He cannot do that as a thrower with bodies around him, taking hits and then making power throws, throwing with bodies around him, throwing when he's off his spot, throwing from different arm angles, also scrambling out the pocket when contained is broken, and making these crazy sidearm throws. We see the Josh Allens, Justin Herberts, the Aaron Rodgers make on a consistent basis. Those are some of his weaknesses, which really limits him from being in the top 10. But besides that, this guy, he does everything you ever want from your prototypical pure passing drop back quarterback. It's quite special, extremely accurate, great decision maker, knows where to go with the football, gets the ball off his hands quickly, recognizes pressure, good at the line, throws it in stride, very catchable, very easy ball for wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs, all to catch, and great decision maker, like I said. Also, one more thing that I don't like about Matt Ryan, his arm strength. And a guy who I love, right? Ben Karen. I always use a lot of Ben Karen analogies on the pod. He's like, oh, Daryl, you always care about arm strength. Here's why I care about arm strength. Matt Ryan's going to have the opportunity to play in the dome, also played in the dome with the Atlanta Falcons. He has the luxury of, not bad weather, not a lot of snow. So his arm strength doesn't need to come into account. But now that he's in the AFC, let's say the Indianapolis Colts, they're going on the road to Buffalo, Highmark Stadium, playoff game, and the weather is awful, right? I'd rather have Ryan Tannehill in that game than a Matt Ryan, because Matt Ryan, because of his arm, he's going to be limited. He's not going to be able to make the throws a Ryan Tannehill could make. Now, I'd still take Matt Ryan over Tannehill because of all the precision that Matt Ryan does. Now he runs the offense, but this says something that I would say is to note, and it is a limitation of Matt Ryan. Can you make the throws under pressure? Can you make the throws when your emotions being altered? Can you make the throws under bad weather? I don't think he can do that. And that's all we have today for Outside the Shop. Have a great day, everybody, and God bless.